The night was quiet. Too quiet. Somewhere, in the vast expanse of space, an unknown force was watching. It had been watching for centuries, waiting for the moment when humanity would dare to step beyond its solar system. And that moment was finally here. Captain Lydia Carson stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, staring out at the swirling expanse of stars before her. She was the first human to command a ship capable of traveling beyond the edges of the Milky Way. This was it. The final frontier. A new era for mankind. But just as she began to speak into the comms, to reassure her crew that the unknown was no longer something to fear, a voice crackled through the system. It was alien, deep and resonant, an impossible sound that reverberated through the ship's walls. "We've been watching you for a long time," the voice said. Lydia froze. Her fingers hovered over the control panel, unsure if she should respond. The crew looked to her, their faces pale with the realization that they were not alone in the universe. "The moment you leave your home, the moment you cross into the great unknown," the voice continued, "will change everything. For you, for us, and for the very fabric of existence." The words echoed through the air, a warning that chilled Lydia to the core. Was this some kind of test? Some kind of elaborate joke? But the look on her crew's faces told her it was no joke. It was real. "We are the Veli," the voice revealed. "And you, humans, have no idea what you are about to awaken." First twist. The voice paused for a moment, as though considering how much to reveal. Then it dropped a bombshell that no one on the Endeavour could have anticipated. "We've already observed your kind. You're not the first to attempt this, and you certainly won't be the last. But if you continue, if you dare to tread further into our territory, there will be consequences. We will show you a future beyond your wildest imaginations. A future where you may never recover." For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the hum of the ship's engines and the ragged breathing of the crew members. Lydia's mind raced as she tried to process what had just been said. What was this alien race trying to convey? And why did they sound so certain that humanity's expansion into the stars would have dire consequences? This was the very beginning of their journey, yet the message could not be ignored. It was clear that humanity was stepping into something far greater than they had ever understood. But who were the Veli? And why had they waited so long to reveal themselves? Just as Lydia was about to speak, a new transmission blinked across the screen. This time, it was a map. A strange, alien map, showing coordinates that pointed deep into uncharted space. And on the map, one word was marked clearly, glowing ominously in the alien script: danger. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. The screen blinked off, and the ship's bridge fell into an unsettling stillness. Lydia Carson stood frozen, staring at the spot where the map had appeared. The word danger burned into her mind. She had been trained for moments like this, to face the unknown and keep her crew grounded. But the alien warning? It was beyond anything she could have prepared for. The map was still fresh in her mind, the coordinates leading into deep, unexplored space. Yet, it wasn't just the destination that unsettled her. It was the warning itself. The Veli hadn't just issued a threat, they had offered a cryptic promise of something far worse. "We need to talk, Captain," Commander Finn Holt said quietly, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but his face was pale, his brow furrowed with concern. Finn had been with her through countless missions, but this felt different. They were on the edge of something much larger than they had imagined. Lydia turned to him, trying to steady her nerves. "You heard that too, didn't you? The Veli, what do they mean? You have no idea what you're about to awaken." "We have to be cautious," Finn said, his voice tightening with worry. "This isn't just about the mission anymore. It's about survival. What if they're right? What if we're walking into something that humanity is not prepared for?" Lydia glanced out the viewing window at the vastness of space beyond. The stars twinkled like distant flames, but the quietness of space felt suffocating now. She wasn't just facing the unknown, she was standing on the brink of something that might be more than any human could comprehend. The Veiley were waiting. Watching. We still need to know what's out there, Lydia replied, her voice resolute, though doubt gnawed at her mind. Humanity has come so far. We can't turn back now. We can't let fear rule our decisions. We need to find out what they're warning us about. But at what cost? Finn pressed. Is it worth risking everything to find out? Maybe there's more to this than curiosity. Lydia shook her head. She understood Finn's hesitation, but the need for discovery was deep within her. There had to be more, answers, resources, perhaps even a chance to push humanity forward in ways they hadn't even dreamed of. The crew was growing restless, unsure of what to think. Lieutenant Rhea Wallace, who had been silent up until this point, stepped forward. "Captain, what do you want us to do? Should we follow the coordinates? What if it's a trap? We're on the edge of everything we've ever dreamed of. But what if it's a mistake?" Lydia took a deep breath, looking at the faces of the crew. She could see the fear in their eyes, the uncertainty. She knew they trusted her, but this was different. They were facing something unknown, something far bigger than all of them. But there was also a part of her, an instinct, telling her that the only way to truly understand was to venture into the unknown. "We follow the coordinates," Lydia said, her voice steady. "We move forward. But we do so with caution. Keep alert. If we sense any danger, we'll turn back. We'll be ready for anything." Finn nodded, though he didn't look convinced. "Understood, Captain." As the crew returned to their posts, Lydia sat in the captain's chair, staring at the star map. The coordinates glowed like a beacon, urging her to follow them. But in her heart, a nagging feeling of doubt lingered. Could humanity really handle the truth the Veiley were hinting at? Would the consequences of their discovery change everything, as the alien race had claimed? Before she could dwell on it any longer, the comms crackled again. This time, it was an incoming message from Earth. "Captain Carson, we've been monitoring your mission closely," the voice of Commander Harris from Earth Command said. "There's something we need to inform you about. We've intercepted more transmissions from the Veiley, other explorers who've crossed into their territory. The results, well, they're not good. There are no survivors." Lydia felt a chill run down her spine. Her gut told her the worst was yet to come. The Veiley were warning them not just out of caution, they were warning them because something catastrophic had already happened. She looked out at the stars once more. The mission was no longer about discovery. It was about survival. And the crew had no idea what lay ahead. The ship glided forward into the abyss of uncharted space. It had been days since they received the cryptic warning from the Veiley, and each passing hour left Lydia Carson feeling more uneasy. The vast, empty darkness of space felt closer now, almost suffocating. The stars outside no longer seemed like distant points of light, they felt like watching eyes. Lydia stood at the helm, her hands gripping the console tightly. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound, a constant reminder of the journey they had begun. But each time she glanced at the screen, at the glowing coordinates, a new wave of anxiety washed over her. "We're approaching the first set of coordinates," Finn Holt said, his voice betraying the tension he was feeling. "I've noticed some anomalies in the readings. Gravity fluctuations and, well, it's hard to explain. Something doesn't feel right." Lydia's stomach twisted. "What do you mean, anomalies?" Finn didn't reply immediately, and when he did, his voice was laced with uncertainty. "I'm not sure, Captain. But we're definitely picking up interference, beyond what should be normal for this sector. It's like we're walking into someone else's territory." The comms crackled as Lieutenant Rhea Wallace's voice cut in. "Captain, I think you should see this. Lydia didn't wait for an invitation. She rushed to the observation deck where Rhea stood, eyes wide. The stars outside had suddenly shifted, as though the ship was moving into a darker patch of space. But it wasn't just the darkness. Something else was out there, moving. "It's the ship," Rhea said quietly, pointing to a flickering light in the distance. "There's something following us." Lydia narrowed her eyes. It wasn't just a ship. It was massive, too large to be a regular craft. The shape was irregular, as if the hull had been altered by time or something else. The lights were faint, and the ship's surface reflected the surrounding space in a way that made it almost invisible. For a moment, Lydia couldn't even tell if it was real or an illusion. "What is that?" Lydia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, but it's not one of ours," Rhea replied. "It doesn't match anything in our databases." "Set a course for the anomaly," Lydia ordered, her tone firm despite the sinking feeling in her chest. "We need to investigate. Prepare for anything." As the ship changed course, the anomaly grew larger in the viewport. The crew watched in stunned silence as the strange craft came closer. Its surface seemed to shimmer in the light, and its irregular shape only added to its unsettling presence. The closer they got, the more it became clear that it wasn't merely following them. It was waiting for them. "We're being pulled toward it," Finn muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "This isn't just a coincidence. It's as if it's inviting us." Lydia's mind raced. The Vaili had warned them. They had said this would change everything. But this? This was beyond anything she could have imagined. "Lieutenant Wallace, keep scanning for any more anomalies." "Commander Holt, I want a full weapons check, just in case," Lydia ordered, her voice sharp now. She could feel the weight of her decisions pressing down on her. The unknown stretched out before them, but there was no turning back. Not now. As they neared the alien craft, the strange signals intensified. The ship began to glow faintly, as if alive, reacting to their presence. Lydia's heart pounded in her chest. They were too close now to retreat. If they turned back, would they make it out in time? Or was it already too late? "Captain," Finn said, his voice tense, "we've reached the ship's coordinates. But the readings are disturbing. It's like the ship is affecting our instruments." Lydia's gaze never left the screen. The flickering image of the alien craft filled the viewport, pulsating with an energy that felt almost sentient. "Send out a communication signal," Lydia ordered. "Let's see if it responds." The ship's communication system hummed to life as the message was broadcast. For a long moment, nothing happened. No reply. The silence was deafening. Then, suddenly, a response came through. A distorted voice crackled over the comms. "You have entered forbidden space. You are not prepared for what lies beyond. Leave now, or face the consequences." The voice was cold, alien. It didn't sound like a warning, it sounded like a command. Lydia's heart skipped a beat. The Vaili's warning had been right all along. They were in over their heads. "Full stop." Lydia shouted. "Shut down all non-essential systems. Get us out of here." But it was already too late. The alien ship seemed to respond, its lights flaring to life. The ship trembled as if caught in the gravitational pull of the unknown vessel. The crew braced for impact, but it never came. Instead, the world outside the ship twisted. The stars themselves seemed to bend and stretch, distorting as if space itself was warping. A deep hum resonated through the hull of the ship, vibrating in their bones. "Brace for impact," Lydia yelled as the ship shuddered violently. And then, as if the universe itself held its breath, everything went dark. The silence in the ship was oppressive. Lydia Carson stood frozen at the helm, staring at the blank screen in front of her, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on her like an iron wall. The violent tremors had subsided, but the eerie hum of the alien craft continued to resonate through the ship, a constant reminder of the danger they were in. The lights had gone out, leaving only the dim emergency glow to guide them. The crew was on edge, and Lydia could feel her own pulse racing as she struggled to make sense of what had just happened. "Captain," Finn's voice came through the comms, shaky but determined. "We're not alone in here. There's something moving through the ship." Lydia's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't wanted to voice her own fears, but the unsettling sensation of something watching them was impossible to ignore. The darkness outside the ship had changed. It wasn't just empty space anymore, it had become something else, something living. "We need to re-establish power," Lydia said, her voice more confident than she felt. "Get the engines back online, then check for any breaches in the hull. I want a full diagnostics report in 5 minutes." Her crew had been through tough situations before, but nothing like this. And now, they were on their own, cut off from everything they knew. They'd entered the unknown, and it was clear that the consequences of their actions were far worse than any of them could have anticipated. The ship's systems hummed back to life, and the eerie hum from the alien vessel grew louder. It felt like it was coming from inside their very bones. "Captain," Rhea Wallace said from her station, "we've got a strange signal. It's not like any transmission we've ever received. It's more like a pulse, a frequency we can't quite decipher." Lydia took a deep breath, her thoughts racing. Could it be coming from the alien ship? "We think so," Rhea replied, tapping furiously at her console. "But it's not like any communication method we've encountered. This might not even be a message, more like an invitation." An invitation. The word hung in the air like a cold shadow. An invitation to what? "We're in too deep now," Lydia muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "We can't turn back." But what if? The thought remained unfinished. What if the aliens weren't just trying to communicate? What if they were testing them, pushing them to the brink? What if the consequences of entering this forbidden space were far worse than they could imagine? As she turned to give further orders, a sudden jolt ran through the ship, knocking her off balance. The lights flickered, then went out completely. Darkness consumed them once more. What was that? Finn's voice came through, frantic this time. "We've lost power to the main engines," Rhea replied. "It's like the ship itself is shutting down, or, wait. Something's coming through the hull." The air grew thick, the strange humming reverberating through the walls. Lydia tried to push back the fear that was rising in her chest, but it was impossible. The crew had no idea what they were dealing with, and every decision she made seemed to lead them further into danger. "We're trapped," Finn said, his voice strained. "There's no way out of here. We can't get back to the coordinates, and there's nothing ahead of us but that thing." Lydia had to fight to maintain her composure. She couldn't let the crew see the doubt creeping into her own mind. "We won't give up," she said, though her voice lacked the confidence she wanted to project. "We'll find a way. We just have to." The sound of something heavy scraping across the ship's metal floors cut her off. "Captain." Rhea's voice was loud in the sudden silence. "It's moving, there's something inside." Lydia's heart pounded. Her instincts screamed at her to leave the ship, to get everyone out, but where would they go? What was out there? The alien vessel was waiting, and the unknown forces that had surrounded them were only growing stronger. "Everyone, stay alert," Lydia ordered. "We're not alone. Something's aboard, but we don't know what. Keep your weapons ready, and if you see anything unusual, anything at all, report it immediately." The air in the ship seemed to grow colder as the crew made their way through the darkened corridors. Every sound, every creak of metal felt amplified. Every corner they turned, every shadow they passed, was a potential threat. But it was more than just fear. It was something deep inside Lydia, a feeling she couldn't shake, that made her wonder whether the ship, the alien craft, wasn't just trying to communicate. It was warning them. This wasn't just a test. This was a reckoning. We're going to figure this out, Lydia muttered to herself, the weight of her responsibility heavy on her shoulders. But deep down, she knew something was about to change. The universe had a way of doing that, of taking you into uncharted waters and asking you to decide just how much you were willing to sacrifice. And this time, it wouldn't be just the crew's lives on the line. It would be humanity's future. And they were about to find out how much they were truly willing to lose. Lydia's heart was racing. Every step she took seemed to echo through the silent halls of the alien ship, the air growing thicker with each passing minute. She had given her orders, but the crew was starting to question whether they could trust her. The overwhelming weight of their predicament was pushing them all to the edge, and Lydia could feel the cracks forming in the fragile bond that had once united them. "Captain," Finn's voice crackled over the comms. "We're hearing noises. From all around us. There's something moving through the walls. It's not just the ship. It's something else." Lydia stopped in her tracks, her stomach churning. The alien craft wasn't just a vessel, it was alive. The pulse of energy they detected earlier had become stronger, more insistent, and now it was beginning to warp the very fabric of space around them. Every corner they turned, every shadow that passed, felt like a threat. "Stay calm," Lydia ordered, though she could hear the unease in her own voice. "Keep your heads together. We're close to the control room. Once we access the main systems, we'll get answers. We just need to." A sudden, violent tremor cut her off, throwing her off balance. She braced herself against the nearest wall, her mind racing. The floor buckled beneath her feet as if the entire ship were being shaken apart. The crew screamed over the comms, their panic echoing through the channels. Lydia's chest tightened, her instinct screaming at her to get out, get them all out. "Status report," she shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. "Is everyone all right?" We're good," Ria's voice came through, shaky but steady. "But we've lost all comms with the outside. The ship's blocking all transmissions. We're completely cut off from Earth." Lydia's mind raced. They had no way of calling for help. The alien vessel had severed all ties to the world they knew. "Then we'll make contact with the alien ship directly," Lydia said, her voice firm, even as doubt gnawed at her insides. "We're going to take the risk." "But Captain," Ria protested, "what if that's exactly what it wants? What if this thing is leading us into a trap?" Lydia didn't have an answer. She had no more words of reassurance. Everything they'd encountered so far screamed danger, yet they had no choice but to press forward. If the ship wanted them dead, they'd already be gone. But what if the true danger wasn't death, but something far worse, something that could alter humanity itself? "We need answers," Lydia replied, as much to herself as to her crew. "We have to know what this thing wants. And why it's here." The ship suddenly lurched again, this time more violently, throwing the crew to the floor. The alien hum was deafening now, almost like a heartbeat, alive and angry. It was as if the ship itself was aware of them, reacting to their every movement. "I'm not sure how much longer we can hold out, Captain," Finn said, his voice strained with fear. This place, it feels like it's suffocating us." "Stay strong," Lydia urged, pushing herself back onto her feet. "We'll find a way through. We just need to get to the control room. We need to understand what we're up against." They pushed forward, moving through the twisting hallways of the alien ship, their footsteps muffled by the thick, pulsating air. Every turn they took seemed to lead them deeper into the heart of the mystery. Then they found it. The door to the control room slid open with a low, grinding sound. The room beyond was unlike anything Lydia had ever seen. There were no familiar consoles, no interfaces or screens. Instead, the walls were covered in intricate symbols, glowing faintly with an unnatural light. The floor beneath their feet seemed to ripple, as if the very substance of the ship were alive. Lydia stepped forward cautiously, her breath shallow. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for anything that might offer a clue. "We're here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Now we wait." It didn't take long for the ship to respond. A deep, rumbling noise filled the room, and the symbols on the walls began to pulse. Lydia felt a chill run down her spine as a wave of energy washed over her. The air grew heavier, pressing down on them as the ship seemed to come to life. The strange hum intensified, and for a moment, Lydia thought she heard a voice that wasn't quite human. "You should not have come." The words echoed in her mind, not through her ears, but in the very core of her being. What the hell was that? Finn's voice trembled. Lydia's heart raced. The alien presence was speaking to them. And whatever it wasn't just a ship. It was something far more ancient and powerful. "Captain, what do we do?" Rhea asked, her voice strained. Lydia's mind was spinning, her thoughts racing. The truth was beginning to unravel before her. The alien craft wasn't just a warning, it was a judgment. A test. A reckoning. "We find out why it's here," Lydia said, her voice unwavering. "And we make sure humanity survives it." The stakes were higher than ever. The alien race wasn't offering a simple warning, it was telling them that their very presence had altered something fundamental. They had crossed a line, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The crew had come too far to turn back now. They had to face whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. The air in the control room was thick with tension. The pulse of energy from the alien symbols had intensified, surrounding the crew like a suffocating fog. Lydia's mind raced as she processed the words she had just heard. "You should not have come." The voice wasn't just a warning, it was a command, an ultimatum. It wasn't human, yet it felt like it had known humanity for centuries. Finn, visibly shaken, was the first to speak. "What does it mean? What does it want from us?" Lydia took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. The walls of the ship pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, almost as though they were feeding off her anxiety. "We need to find out," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Her eyes scanned the room, focusing on the glowing symbols that had shifted into a complex pattern, seemingly waiting for a response. Rhea, who had been silent until now, spoke with quiet urgency. "Captain, we have to leave. This ship, whatever it is, it's not just alive. It's aware. And we don't know how far it can go." Lydia met Rhea's gaze, her expression resolute. "We can't leave yet. We've come this far. If this ship is what we think it is, then it holds the answers to everything. This could change humanity forever." There was a pause as the crew absorbed her words. Finn looked at Lydia, his brow furrowed. "But what if we're not meant to be the ones to have those answers? What if we're—" The floor suddenly trembled again, sending a shockwave through the room. The crew stumbled, struggling to maintain their balance. This time, however, the tremor was different, it was a warning. A sound reverberated throughout the ship, low and ominous, as though the entire vessel was preparing for something. The alien presence was growing more agitated. Lydia stepped forward, drawn to the central console. The symbols on the walls seemed to be converging into a single point, where a holographic display flickered into life. An image appeared in front of them, an image of Earth, hovering in space. Lydia's breath caught in her throat as she watched the planet spin slowly, the peaceful blue and green orb surrounded by a vast, dark void. But something was wrong. A second, smaller image appeared alongside the Earth. It was a vast, blackened shape, its edges rippling and warping the fabric of space around it. It seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, as if it were alive, watching. "This is what we have warned you about," the alien voice echoed, reverberating in their minds. "The rift you have created will change everything. The balance between your world and others will be irrevocably shattered. The consequences will ripple through time and space." "What the hell is that?" Finn whispered, pointing to the dark shape beside Earth. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a ship, or something much more ancient. It was both terrifying and beautiful in its complexity. "This is what lies beyond," the voice continued. "The true enemy. You have awakened something that should have remained dormant. It will come for you. For all of you." Lydia stepped back, her heart pounding. The implications were clear. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a gatekeeper, a sentinel of sorts, holding back something far worse. And now that they had breached it, they had triggered a chain of events they could never undo. "What do we do now?" Rhea asked, her voice laced with fear. Lydia's mind raced. They couldn't just leave the alien ship behind, it was far too dangerous. The warnings weren't just for them, but for Earth itself. The balance had been disrupted, and they had become a part of something far larger than they had ever imagined. "We have to stop it," Lydia said, her voice firm. "We need to find a way to close the rift. We can't let this thing, whatever it is, reach Earth." "But how?" Finn asked. "We don't even know what that thing is, or how to fight it." The voice responded, its tone now colder, more distant. "You do not have the power to fight it. But you may have the power to seal the rift." The alien image flickered and shifted, showing the rift again, now pulsating with an ominous light. It was as if the ship was showing them the key to stopping the invasion, but the cost was unclear. Lydia turned to her crew. They were all looking at her now, waiting for her decision. Her heart weighed heavy. The truth was, they were no longer in control. This wasn't a battle of weapons or firepower, it was a battle of understanding, of survival. And time was running out. "If we don't act, everything we've fought for, everything humanity has worked for, will be lost," Lydia said, her voice unwavering despite the storm of doubt that threatened to consume her. "We have to try. For Earth. For everyone." Rhea and Finn exchanged a glance. There was no turning back now. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The alien voice faded, leaving only the eerie hum of the ship in the air. The crew had no choice. They had to move quickly. But they also knew that whatever they were about to face, whatever lay at the heart of the rift, was far beyond anything they could have prepared for. And so, with determination and fear weighing on them equally, they set out to close the rift. The stakes had never been higher. The crew stood at the center of the alien ship, staring at the swirling rift before them. The walls of the ship vibrated, pulsating with a growing energy that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the universe itself. Lydia's hands trembled as she gripped the control panel. She had no idea how to close the rift, but the alien ship had made it clear, failure was not an option. "We can't wait any longer," Lydia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The longer we hesitate, the worse the consequences." Finn stepped beside her, his eyes focused on the rift. "What if we can't stop it? What if we're too late?" "We can't think like that," Lydia replied. "We're the only ones who know about this. If we don't do something now, no one else will." Rhea nodded. "We've come this far. We have to trust that we can do it." Lydia's mind flashed back to the alien warnings. "The rift you have opened will change everything. There is no going back." But there was one thing the alien entity hadn't accounted for, the resilience of humanity. As Lydia carefully manipulated the ship's controls, a holographic map appeared before them. The alien symbols had shifted once again, revealing a complex set of coordinates and diagrams. It was their only chance, a way to reverse the rift, to push back the alien threat and restore balance. The problem was, the process was dangerous. The ship's own systems had been corrupted by the rift, and it was clear that it wasn't designed for human hands. But Lydia refused to be paralyzed by fear. She had to try. "We can do this," she said, determination in her voice. "Just follow my lead." The crew worked in unison, each member performing their assigned task as the countdown to the critical moment began. Every motion felt heavy with the weight of the world on their shoulders. They weren't just fighting for their own survival anymore, they were fighting for the survival of all of humanity. "Lydia," Finn called out, his voice strained. "The rift, it's becoming unstable. I don't know how much longer we have." Lydia looked at the swirling vortex. It was growing bigger, its energy increasing exponentially. They were running out of time. A new wave of alien energy surged through the ship, lighting up the walls with a haunting glow. The crew stumbled back as the ship's systems seemed to rebel, each panel sparking with energy. "Brace yourselves," Lydia shouted. "We're almost there." With a final command, Lydia initiated the sequence. The ship responded, its systems beginning to realign as the alien symbols on the walls pulsed faster. The rift began to shrink, but the pressure on the crew was unbearable. The force of the ship's energy was so intense that it felt like they were being pulled apart. "I can't hold on," Rhea cried out, her voice filled with panic. But Lydia didn't flinch. "You can. We all can. Just hold on for a little longer." The rift started to collapse inward, its dark energy retracting as if it were being pulled back into itself. The ship groaned as if it, too, was resisting the change. Lydia's heart raced. This was it. Either they succeeded, or the consequences would be unimaginable. Suddenly, the energy surge ceased. The ship fell silent, the hum of the engines gone. The lights flickered, then stabilized. The rift had closed. Lydia let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. They had done it. The holographic display faded, leaving only the glowing remnants of the alien symbols behind. Finn, Rhea, and Lydia looked at each other, exhaustion and relief flooding their faces. "We did it," Finn said, his voice filled with disbelief. "We stopped it," Lydia replied, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "We saved Earth." But as the silence stretched between them, something else weighed heavily in the room. The alien presence was gone, but the ship still hummed with a faint, otherworldly energy. They had won this battle, but the war, their journey, was far from over. "We've just learned the price of crossing into new frontiers," Lydia said, turning to face her crew. "We've seen what lies beyond, and we've learned that humanity's curiosity, our drive to explore and push boundaries, comes with consequences. We may never fully understand what we've encountered here, but we've proven one thing: we can overcome anything. Together." Rhea nodded, wiping a tear from her eye. "We've faced the unknown and won. That's what makes us human." Lydia smiled, the weight of the journey still heavy on her shoulders but now tempered with hope. "Yes. And no matter what comes next, we'll face it the same way. Together." With the rift sealed and the alien ship's threat neutralized, Lydia and her crew prepared for their return to Earth. The vastness of space was once again a place of mystery, but now they carried with them the knowledge that humanity's place in the universe was not to be feared. They had proven that even when confronted with the impossible, they could rise to the occasion. And as their ship soared back toward home, Lydia couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. This wasn't the end of their journey, it was only the beginning.